All right, so we're recording now. Thank you very much, everybody, for dialing in before the Easter weekend. This is our sixth and at least temporarily final Surrey Sip and Share. We figured with between April, May, June, people are going to be in the midst of shearing and there's still shows going on, and then July and August people get into vacations, etc. So there may be something that comes up again in the fall, but for the time being, this will be the last one. So our topic tonight is felting. And I am hoping we have a small group, and I'm really hoping people are going to participate because I, as the moderator, am not a felter. So I will welcome anybody who has done so and can contribute. That being said, I do have just some topics that we'll go over that I'll kind of bring up, and then I will ask everybody to kind of chime in. So I'm going to start with wet felting, and within that then is Nuno felting. So some of the questions are kind of broad, and then some of them may be specific to Nuno felting or traditional wet felting. And then once we've covered that, we can go on to needle felting as well. So and people feel free as well if you want to do the chat, use the chat button. I confess that sometimes I get going and I'm really enthralled with what everybody has to say, and I forget to look at the chat. So every time I pledge to be better, and again, I will pledge to be better this time around, but absolutely feel free to use the chat button. So I guess my first question is, and if everybody knows how to use their hand button, how many of you do wet felting or have wet felted, or even just raise a hand if you. All right, good. We've got two people on camera, and the two people have, oh, there we go, a third person. Woohoo. All right, good. We've got three people who have done it. So I guess my first question for everybody would be, for those of you who have wet felted, is for those of you who have worked with Suri wet felting, how do you prepare your Suri? Are you starting just like with locks, or are you turning it into some sort of roving or bats? What are you doing? Sure, go ahead.
Okay. I'm a Wakaya reader, but I love Surrey. I actually bought some Surrey from a farm that was going out of business. So I got roving, and it was really not great Surrey. It was older and a higher micron, but boy, did it felt wonderful.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. Okay, good. Karen, I know you're not necessarily an expert, but
yeah, no, I've done it from bats. I usually do mix a little bit of wool in with it. I find, so when I'm felting, I'm usually making hats, and the Surrey stays very, very soft for a hat. It kind of collapses on itself. So I do usually add a little bit of wool. I have also done locks onto a scarf or something, pinning it down with some wool. But yeah, so I've done both of those.
And are you usually, when you're doing that, are you using bats?
Yes, I use bats because that's what I can make myself. I can't make roving. So I use bats for that, or just dyed locks I use sometimes too.
Okay. And do you have the, when you're using the wool with it, have you blended the wool in to the bat ahead,
yes.
Or are you kind of using two different fibers? And
I usually, if I'm doing a hat, I mix them together because I want the hat to be a consistent color. If I'm doing it like on a scarf like Nuno felting or something like that, then I will sometimes layer it.
Okay, good. Brett, I'm sorry, did you start to speak?
Oh, yeah, my name is Brent Weeks, in Kansas, Sullivan, Kansas. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm, struggling with using Suri and felting, because, as we know, it doesn't felt nearly as well as Wakaya. And I have both Suri and Wakaya, alpacas. What I've been doing basically is, mixing a little bit of Suri in with a lot of Wakaya and making carded bats. And I have to be careful with that because if I put too much Suri and not enough Wakaya, then it doesn't felt well. At least that's been my experience. So that's about the limit of what I do with it. And that's kind of why I'm here tonight. Trying to get some ideas about what else I can do with my Suri seconds. I mean, the prime blanket, that's a no-brainer. That gets turned into yarn, but it's the seconds that am looking for ideas on.
Yeah, well, and thank you for that because I as somebody who doesn't necessarily felt but puts myself around a lot of fiber artists, felting is probably the one thing that I get a lot of I guess I'll say mixed messages on, in terms of some people seem to not have a problem felting it, and then other people kind of struggle with it. And so I'm also tonight kind of really curious to see maybe what other people's experiences have been, and if they are not having a problem with it, kind of what their techniques might be to help those who were. So I don't. Is it Charissa? Carissa?
I go by Char.
Char. Okay. So Char, you said that you had felted some Suri that was pretty coarse and it felted nicely. So I don't know if you have any insights on.
Well, I don't know if y'all can see this, but that's the hat that I made out
Oh
of
yeah.
the Suri. It was 100% Suri, and it was a higher micron. And I actually said it was crappy Suri when I got a hold of it. So it should give you hope, if it's like some of your older animals that's not quite yarn worthy.
Yeah.
And this was from a mill. And it felted really, really well. I mean, I did have to work at it a little bit more muscle, and especially when I was trying to full it, you're just throwing it and getting it and rolling it different ways, but it felted out beautifully for me. I actually loved it. It was one of the prettiest hats I've ever made because it had, once I got it clean, it had a sheen to it. That luster was coming through.
Okay. And it looks to me like you did with the hat, you were doing the pure wet felting, right? Not the Nuno felting.
No, it was pure wet felting over a resist.
Okay. And so what I'm thinking that maybe the temperature of the water also plays a role in that.
Well, you do shock it from, you warm it up and then you shock it into cold, and it just causes the fibers to grab onto each other. Wool does help if you're having trouble getting it to felt, or with some of it, because I have a harder time with a finer micron getting it to felt.
Which is interesting because normally that's the opposite thought, right? Is that the finer it is, the easier it is to felt.
Well, this wasn't a lot of guard here. It was just a higher micron level of Suri.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't think it was uniform. So I think I had kind of a broader range. And because I was feeling it, I was like, ugh, feels like wool. So I thought this will, because I tried to spin it and I didn't like it. So that was what I was left with, to try and figure out what I could do with this Suri that I didn't particularly care for.
Okay. Anybody else out there that might want to talk about their experience? Kathy?
Oh, yeah. I usually knit what I'm going to do first and then felt it. So I always put wool in with it. So that, it gives, I just know what's going to happen. And I find if I just do the alpaca alone, you get the softer hat. And sometimes it doesn't felt enough. It remains too big. But I've had both experiences where, people love it because it's softer and it's more like a knit cap. But you just can't tell. You never know what you're going to get.
Anybody else out there who has tried wet felting with
Well,
Suri?
I'm Nancy, and
Mhm.
I'm kind of in the same situation as Brett. I have Wakayas, I have one Suri, working on more Suris, but just trying to find out more information about how to do this the best way.
Yeah. I don't, Nancy Lindemood, you're out there. I don't know if you've ever tried wet felting with Suri.
I am barely a beginner. Actually I raised my hand because I took a class 2 years ago with oh gosh, I forget her name. She was at the NEFC event in Burlington, Kentucky.
Okay.
Great class, and I bought all the supplies and things I needed to do the wet felting on scarves, silk scarves, but I really haven't done it yet. So I'm kind
Got
of
it.
here to learn and don't have a lot of advice
Got it.
or any
Okay.
advice.
I forgot to add, I just go back. What I do with my carded baths is dryer balls. So that's, I didn't mention that before.
Yeah, Kieran, I don't know if I mean, I know you're putting some wool into yours, which I certainly think probably helps. Do you use a higher micron or a lower micron or?
Kind of middle range.
Okay.
I don't do it with my babies. That's just way too fine. But I have found that the really coarse older ones tend to have a lot of guard hair that pokes up out of it. So so yeah, I kind of go with my middle grades.
And have you felted with anything else before or just Suri?
Wakaya also, but I've never done straight wool.
Okay. So I guess for the two individuals on the call now that have both Wakayas and Suris have been kind of struggling a bit with their Suri, do you as you think about your experience with Wakaya versus Suri, any words of wisdom for them on?
I have mixed it half and half and gotten some pretty good results with that, half Suri, half Wakaya. Like I said, straight Suri to me is just way too soft of a felt to use for my purposes. Although it would be great for something drapey, if you're making, like a shawl or something, that softness would be great on there. But that's going to be more Nuno felting probably than wet felting.
And have you any differences like in I think Char was saying that she had to really kind of throw it around and work a bit more
yeah,
at getting
it's
it to
not an
felt,
easy, I mean, it's not like fin sheep wool that felt, if you look at it, it's not like that.
No.
It does take some work, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I will say that my hat, it was like you could fold it up and crush it, but it would go back to its shape. And I did find that I have those hat shapers that you can find online. I have to use a size smaller than what I want it to end up because it doesn't quite go down as small as I want it to. So if I want a medium sized hat, I have to use a small shaper as I'm going into the shaping of it.
And did either of you find, Karen or Char, did either of you find that you had to work at it longer than maybe you do with other
Oh, yeah.
with other
Yeah,
fibers?
it
yes.
takes a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
About twice as long.
Okay, okay. Well, that, Carol or Brett, that might be something as well. Maybe you were kind of getting to a point where you know, had success with Wakaya and you felt like you weren't having any success or limited success with the Suri, and maybe kind of
Well,
said,
that,
well,
yeah,
this isn't working, or
that's my experience. Anything with Suri in it, I had to work longer, harder, use hotter water. You
Mhm.
know, sometimes, like I said, I carded bat I use for dryer balls, and if I had too much Suri in there, a lot of times I'd have to, you know, the dryer ball just wouldn't turn out well. I have to go back and throw another layer of carded bat on there and work it again, and it just you know, when I do 100% Wakaya, you know, I got some animals that I can literally feel the dryer ball shrink up in my hand as it, you know, as it felt, and it felt solid. I almost never have that happen anytime I have Suri in it. It's just,
Mm.
I have to
Yeah,
keep
it
working
doesn't
and
have
working
the
it.
scales. It doesn't have nearly as many scales on it, so it doesn't
Yeah.
grab the way that Wakaya
Right.
and wool
Yeah.
will.
So
Mm.
I'll be
Okay.
quite frank with you. You know, what I found, I sold a lot of my Suri seconds to a lady who does doll hair, and and then I used a lot of it for nesting balls, and that's about the limit of my success with it.
all right. Well, we need to get you back on some of these calls for some of the other things you can do with it. Okay. Let's see. So I guess we've talked a bit about blending it with wool. I don't know, Brett or Carol, you guys may just be kind of purists on the alpaca side of things. I don't know if you've ever thought about trying to, instead of blending in Wakaya, maybe trying to blend in some wool with it. And I'm thinking of that just because on the wool, if you think about wool, Wakaya, Suri, the wool's going to have the highest, you know, the kind of the biggest scale height. They're the greatest scale height. And I'm wondering if maybe even blending in with the Wakaya, if you've got some low scale height on your Wakaya fiber, maybe it's just not enough to kind of pull that Suri in to get it felted.
Well, I mean, our business model is, you know, we are an alpaca farm, and we
Mhm.
want to do as much alpaca as possible, pure alpaca.
Sure.
So, and the other reason I haven't considered wool. I mean, I do use like merino in a lot of my yarn, especially Suri. I'll blend a little bit of merino in there to help the knitters and crocheters.
Mhm.
But one of my concerns is also a lot of people have wool allergies or wool sensitivity. So
Sure.
you know, if I don't have to, I won't. And
Mm.
so
Yeah, sure. Sure.
I actually have Icelandic sheep. So I am trying this year to blend Icelandic sheep with the Surrey. That should be interesting.
Hmm. I think that would be actually,
I don't
uh,
I don't know if it'll work. They don't have much lanolin. They're really cool. But yeah,
Does
this should
Icelandic
be
felt
interesting.
well?
Yes, absolutely. They're fabulous, but they have very little lanolin. So but they've got a lot of scales. It's, this will be fun.
yeah, I would think that'll be interesting. My understanding, somebody told me once that the Icelandic sheep, like the sort of the history on them was that they have a long stapled, like kind of outer coat, and then a short
Yes.
spine stapled kind of undercoat, if you will. And that what they used to do was spin it up and knit it. And then the fishermen would wear those sweaters, and they were out on the boats, and the sweaters would full. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
so,
they have a word for it. I've forgotten the word for that yarn, but fascinating sheep. And I inherited them, so we're gonna play.
yeah, I think that might be fun to try that blend with the Suri, and particularly because Suri's got the long staple.
Yeah, I think that it'll be really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Um, let's see. So has anybody else out there, if you guys have done any sort of blending with your Suri for to wet felt? I don't know if anybody else out there has any thoughts with regards to either blending with Wakaya or blending with wool.
Liz, this is Carol. I've tried a little bit of wet felting early on, but it's not my go-to. I've done a little Nuno felting, but same thing. It's really hard to adhere to the silk. You have to really work hard at it. And the other thing I did was I did a few wet felted pictures that I never finished. And I mean, this is years ago. And I did what's called pre-felting, which that was a lot of fun. You just made little, maybe 9 or 10-inch squares, and you just layered the Surrey bats in pieces, opposite, so that the scales would grab a hold. So they were very, I would say maybe when they were finished, a 1/4 inch thick. But then I could cut those out, and then I could felt them onto a background. So I did a few of those. I didn't think to look for them. I haven't pulled them out of my stash items a long time, but if I have a chance, I'll take a look and see if I have them handy. But it was fun. Some got really nice, or nice to me, and others got kind of ragged when I went to wet felt them. The shapes in there didn't stay true to the form. I think with some embellishment of either stitching or something to finish them off would be good, but it was just me playing around with Surrey and seeing what would happen when I felt it.
Okay. And that was using the Suri.
Yeah, that was using 100% Surrey.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, and I'm just thinking, Char's comment about kind of using a higher micron. I probably had more experience with fulling things once they're knitted and then, putting them through the wash. And I have found that now that I'm thinking about it, I have a fair amount of things that I've done where it's kind of in the 26 to 28 micron range. Now, of course, there's going to be finer fibers in there. And there's a little bit of wool mixed in there. But again, more of a mid-grade wool. But boy, those things, I mean, it doesn't take much effort to at least full them in the wash. So there's got to be a way to do it. Yeah, so we had a question on the chats. I know Karen responded, but Wendy asked, when you are blending Suri and wool, do you make a layer of each or blend on a board? So Karen, you said you usually blend it together because you tried the layers and you found it tended to separate. Okay. And I don't know if anybody's had a chance to somebody mentioned Nuno felting with it, and I don't know if anybody's had a chance to see the Surrey Network's one of the videos. We did a series of videos on different fiber arts mediums. So we did a video, not educational, they were promotional. So we did one with somebody who knits with Suri a lot, somebody who weaves with Suri a lot. And we had a woman, Celeste Melbar Stewart. You all may want to look her up because she's actually a couture designer, and she loves, now she knew no felts, but she loves working with Suri. And so we did a promotional video with her making her products. And she does a lot where she leaves the locks as they are. And she does use wakaya as kind of a backing, and then obviously the silk. And but I kind of watched her through the process. I didn't feel like she was going through a whole lot of extra time or anything when she was doing that. And the Suri felted right onto the wakaya and the silk. And then she makes gowns, so she makes them for individuals, and they're really pretty exquisite. Her work's kind of out there all over.
How do you spell her last name?
It's M like Mary, A-L, V like Victor, A-R dash Stewart, S-T-E-W-A-R-T. So
Thank you.
Celeste Melbar Stewart. And I don't, one of the things I was going to ask, and I don't know if anybody here has, I think somebody said they had tried Nuno felting with it. I don't know if anybody else has. I was going to ask if people felt like there was, if maybe they had better success with Nuno felting versus just traditional wet felting. I think my understanding is there's a step in the Nuno felting where you're kind of going from, I think, hot to cold, or I don't know. Anybody who Nuno felts might
hot
help me.
opens up the scales, and then
Okay.
cold slams it shut. So you shock it.
Okay.
So you get it all to open, intertwine, and then you slam them shut.
Okay. And so, yeah, I think I was reading there's something, I guess when you're trying to get it onto that silk, I think it's important maybe to go from that hot to cold.
Yeah, and a lot of people start with cooler water so that it
Okay.
doesn't felt before it migrates through.
That's what it was. That's
yeah,
what
you
I read.
need to
That
get it
was
to migrate before you felt it, really.
Yeah, okay, that's right. Thank you. So I don't know if anybody, has anybody out there tried Nuno felting with Suri that maybe they've had either better success or less success?
I've only used the locks I was using wakaya and wool as the main Nuno felting, and then put some locks onto it. I've never
Mhm.
tried using the Suri as my main fiber in the Nuno felting.
Okay, and now that you mention it, I think when I've seen other people do the Nuno felting with it, it does seem like they use the locks a lot on top of some, another protein fiber than on top of the silk.
So Liz, I did find something that I had wet felted that was Suri. I'll try to hold it up. It kind of got, it's kind of hard to see, but it kind of got like a watercolor effect. It's flowers on a background. I don't know how well you see it, but it's very muted. It did adhere, but like I said, I never did anything with it. I didn't know how to finish it, to hang it or anything. I don't know if you can really see it, but it was just kind of fun.
Yeah.
I like
now,
to do.
Was that wet? That was a pure wet felting, or was that a Nuno
wet
felt?
felted, and I think I cut out these flowers. You see the different flowers here. I don't know how well it's showing up. And then I think I used yarn as like the stems. And then I think I put some Suri on top of it. It was bats, I carded it first and did the little pre-felts that I was talking about. So it was fun. I think out of all of them, this one got pretty good. I have one here that just didn't. This one was kind of supposed to be, it's hard to see, but it was supposed to be like water lilies, but they're kind of not really attached some places. And down here at the bottom, it's very loose. Like they're like pieces yet that didn't attach at all. So it was a fun experiment. Whether or not I do it again, it's time consuming, and the longer you have alpacas, the more there is to do, and sometimes you don't have as much free time. I tried one. Let me grab it here. I had done some little pre-felt alpacas, and then I wet felted them onto the background. The black one is actually not quite attached back here. Some of the brown ones are okay. I don't know if you can see. There was a book I had bought on felting. I don't remember the name of it. I don't think I have it handy, but it was an excellent book on just doing like these pre-felts and felting. And of course, I'm sure they were doing wool. But I thought, well, I have the Suri, I'll just give it a try.
Sure. Okay. Let's see. So I think so on the wet felting, just the questions that I had for people. I don't know, does anybody, I actually, if you all will, I haven't ever had to do this before, but I forgot to turn my lights on when I started this. So if you can just hold on for one moment while I run over to the light switch and turn my lights on in this room, so I'm not in the dark.
Liz, while you're doing that, I'll share this book. It's called Beginner's Guide to Felt Making, by Shirley Asher and Jane Bateman. I don't know. Let me see if you can see it, but it talks about the pre-felting. It's just a small paperback book. I found it. I like to have different books and resources to try things.
Okay.
All right, and Karen just reminded us that there are lots of YouTube videos out there on, I guess, felting with Suri. Is that correct, Karen?
Actually, that was in response to the what is Nuno felting?
Oh, I see. I got it. Okay, yeah. Nuno felting is using a piece of fabric as a backing. The fibers felt through it. Yeah, well, and then also I think, at least, not like I'm any kind of expert here, but I think, Karen, as we talked about with the Nuno felting, you sort of start off in the kind of a similar process to the wet. I mean, it is a type of wet felting, but you start off kind of with a similar process, and you've got that silk backing, but then there's the whole thing with using the cold water, as opposed to, I think, at least what I read was the standard wet felting uses more of that hot water. Is that?
Yeah, well, in Nuno felting, you need to start with the cooler water, and then once you see that it's migrating through, then you can switch to the hot water to make it actually felt.
Okay. 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 So I guess maybe we could, unless I'm going to switch us over to needle felting. But before I do that, I don't know, I'll just ask one more time if anybody has any other questions on wet felting or experiences. Okay. And I guess the other thing, and people actually, before we switch over, and I guess for the most part, I think it sounds like you guys have kind of given us some ideas, but so Carol's done some pictures, I guess, or wall hangings. Looks like they're more like kind of wall hangings. Is that?
Yeah, just
fair?
small ones.
Yeah. And Karen, you're doing the wet felting for hats. And I think Char did that as well.
Mhm.
And then Brett, it sounded like are trying them with for dryer balls. Is that? There. Okay, all right. Okay. Anybody else have any other things that they've done with kind of final products that they've done? Okay. All right, so just switching over to needle felting. And if you thought that I didn't know a lot about wet felting, I know even less about needle felting. So anyone out there who has needle felted before with any kind of fiber?
Right,
You
it's
have?
dangerous.
It's dangerous.
You don't want to poke yourself with those needles. So the
Yeah,
needles are
I have-
barbed. So if
I
you-
have needle felted.
Was that you, Nancy? Nancy Shelton?
For long.
frozen.
Yep. All right. So Karen, maybe can you maybe explain to all of us a little bit about, like, I think that that machine that you, that like that desktop machine that I think was invented in Kentucky or whatever, that's needle felting, I think.
Yes,
Right.
it is.
Okay.
That's a whole lot of needles.
Okay.
So usually you're using a single needle, or there are little, I can grab one out of my studio. There are also little spool kind of things that have like 4 needles inside of them, so you can do a little more at the same time. But so they're barbed needles, and what they're doing is they push in and then they pull back out, and they're just basically tangling the fibers together when you push them in and out. If you stick yourself, you have to pull it out with that barb, which is not fun. So you have to be really careful. But so yeah, it's just really poking at it. And
that has a backing as well, right?
It depends on what you're making. Like if you're making like little animals, you just like roll up a ball and start poking it as it shrinks down. I also do it sometimes when I'm doing needle felt, when I'm doing dryer balls. If I have some that doesn't really stick together well, I will needle felt it and then throw it back in the washer again, so it will stick together. I can go grab some needles. I'll be back.
Okay. And Brett, it sounded like maybe you've tried needle felting?
Tried it once, stuck my hand into my fingers too many times and said never again.
All right, you got barbed.
Yeah, I found that wet felting is much more efficient, much safer.
All right. And Nancy, I think Nancy Shelton, I think you froze for a little bit, but I think, did you say that you have needle felted?
I needle felt a lot. I make creatures and weird things, but
Okay.
generally I use Wakaya and a little wool because it's easier. I go with easy.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but Suri makes beautiful hair and for dolls and creatures, and it's beautiful.
Uh-huh.
So I use it for that.
Okay, and then so then are you using like the locks, or do you brush it out ahead of time at all?
I
Or?
use the whole locks for the hair. And actually I have a guy I'm working on. I'll show it to you. Hold on a minute.
All right.
So this is a single needle. Whoops. Let me get to my camera here. There we go. Single needle.
Yikes.
Though this is actually a double. There's 2 there. And then this right here, it has 4 needles inside of it. And when you push onto it, that the plastic shield drops down. So all 4 of those needles can felt at the same time. So if you're doing a bigger space, not doing detail work, but just trying to get it done, you can use something like this that goes much faster.
That looks safer. Because it
Yeah,
looks like it
because
has
your
that
fingers
shield
are
on
never
it, like you're
anywhere
just
near it.
stamping.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're just doing that. Your fingers are never near it.
Okay.
For detail work, you
And
have to
this
use
is one of my guys. Oh, where is it?
Okay.
Oh my
Usually,
goodness, that's cute.
That's very cute.
this is his hair. This is Suri.
Okay.
So that's what I use for the Suri part.
Yeah.
Usually mine are a little more friendly. He's kind of freaky looking, but I do all kinds of different things. So,
Okay.
but it's fun to needle felt with, but I really do have problems with getting the Suri to blend in to everything else. Not
Okay.
quite sure how to do that.
Okay. Yeah, and I know, I mean, through the years, I have sent bats off to people who have the felting machine, the needle felting machine. And they do always ask me to blend in some wool, but I haven't,
Yeah.
I mean, it's maybe like 15% or so. I mean, it's not like I'm having to do like a 50-50 or anything. And
Right.
I don't know, the sheets have come back really nice. And
I'll have to try that.
yeah, so I don't know. And I know sometimes they'll if they're sending something in, say like Wakaya on the back of silk, I know that they'll sometimes throw out the locks, right, kind of randomly, and
Mhm.
then close it and let it do its thing. And again, the locks seem to come out. So at least from a machine standpoint, it seems to work with the Suri.
This is Emma. I have a question. Does anyone on this call have a machine, or a needle felting machine that you use with Suri?
Oh, there we go, Char. Woohoo!
I have everything.
Go Char. Well, do you? So she was just saying that she'd send it and they would ask her to put wool in there. Do you use it with 100% Suri or do you blend?
Because I'm one of those people that's highly allergic to lanolin, I'm a purist. So
Okay.
I don't mix wool into my stuff.
And it works pretty well.
It does. Sometimes it takes a little more effort, but I got time.
And so is more
So-
effort, you have to run it through the machine multiple times?
Yeah. You might need to pay attention to the size of your needles that you're using.
Oh. And how easy is it to get a machine?
I found mine on Facebook Marketplace for $25.
Oh my
Never,
God.
Oh
never
wow.
used. So I
Wait,
had
is this like the big, is
It-
this
no,
that
this looks
one
like
that they,
it looks like a sewing machine. Mine is.
okay. Huh, that's interesting. I don't think I've seen that one, that type before. I'm thinking of like the big one. I mean, it sits on a table, but I think it's pretty good size.
Well, I think I can grab it.
Well,
Huh.
she's doing that. I have a question for Karen. Well, I'm on a roll with questions.
Sure.
The 4-needle device.
Uh-huh.
We do needle felting with for a teenage and above kids craft at our events, and of course we're always like really nervous giving these needles to kids. But I love that 4-needle.
It's actually 5. I'm looking at it right now. It's actually 5. There's a middle one that I wasn't seeing before, but yeah, that's 5.
Is that pretty readily available?
At Joanne's.
Yeah, I got it. I took a class on needle felting and it was, part of the material fees that we paid. They just gave them to us, but yeah, I think you can order them on Amazon too.
Okay,
The brand is Clover.
Okay, thank you. That might save that makes some parents a little happier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I've got.
Okay.
The little Simplicity needle felting machine.
Wow, that does look like a sewing machine.
Yeah, it just has.
Can you hold that up again? Huh. And so what do you just like move your fabric kind of all around as it's going up and down?
Okay.
Is that?
Well, I have gotten some brushed alpaca scarves from a wholesaler, and then I embellish them on the ends to make a design. I learned that from Debbie Weiss, who's Deborah Weiss. And she's been doing that for her business. And I saw one for sale. And went, "Oh, I can do that. I gotta have this because it's something I don't have."
I have one also, and they are great. They are really fun.
And it's easy.
Okay.
You just
But
kind
I'm
of
still
speed
trying
it
to
up.
figure out, like, are you running it through like a sewing machine? Is that like
Yeah.
if you were
You
so
kind
you're
of
so
yeah, you manipulate it whichever way you
okay.
feel it needs
Like the
to go.
embroidery machines, right? Kind of like that.
Kind of, yeah.
I like that. Yes. Yeah. A lot like that.
Mhm.
Could you
just
do
put-
like stuffed animals? You know, a lot.
No, I don't
No.
think so.
Okay.
That would be more of a 3D needle felting type
Yeah.
project in my mind.
Hmm.
Well, Nancy Shelton, what do you because you do a lot of like figurines and stuff. So how do you use that machine? Oh, Nancy may be frozen again. Rats. All right, when she unfreezes, we'll see if she can respond. So so Charha, so you used it for you bought something that was already had like it was brushed Suri.
They weren't
Right.
sure. Yeah, I'm sure it was a Wakaya. I bought the blank scarves from Debbie Ann Weiss, which is Fashion Forum, to play
Okay.
with. And I did it for Christmas presents. So it was just me playing around with
Yeah,
it.
yeah. No, I think somebody else was asking though, if you could do animals or if you could do like what you could do with it, and
I
we'll
think
see
it's
if Nancy comes
for
back. 'Cause-
for a one plane felting, if that makes sense. It's
Mhm.
not a 3D felting.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you did it as just a flat and then made the animal after that, you'd have to stitch, right?
Well, I hadn't thought of that, but now I'm going to try it.
Careful following me. I get a lot of ideas in my head. Some of them are pretty scary.
Liz, there's a question Wendy asked over here. Has anyone made faux fur pom-poms needle felting? I have not, but maybe somebody else has. Or maybe not.
Huh. So anybody else who has needle felted, like, so Karen, what, maybe you said it before, I apologize, but when you have needle felted, what have you made?
Well, I haven't done a lot with it. I took a class years ago when I still lived in California. And we just made little pictures. We all made, I think they were all roosters. We did that. And then I use it sometimes when I'm wet felting or something. If things don't stick down well, or on my dryer balls, if things don't stick down well, I will needle felt them down and then re-wet felt them to get them to stick better. So I haven't done it a lot. I'm wanting to get more into it, but I want to do everything and there's just not enough time in the day. So we'll see.
I hear you there. Okay. Let's see, Nancy Shelton is back. I don't, Nancy, if you are able, could you maybe tell us, it sounds like you do a lot of needle felting, and I think maybe you said you have that machine.
I do.
So
I
just
also
wondering,
have that
how do you
machine.
use that machine? In what capacity?
What I've been doing with it is if I have a scarf, a knitted scarf, and I want a little creature or something on it, it's not really 3D, it's two-dimensional. I just, I use the machine to put that on the scarf.
Okay.
It just kind of, yeah, it's hard to
Okay.
explain, but That's pretty much what I use it for, is a flat felting picture on something else. Know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. But it's,
It's
yeah,
really
so it's all
handy
kind
for
of
that.
flat felting.
Yeah, it's sort of like embroidery, only felted.
Yep, yep. Okay.
Sorry, I have a really bad connection here. So
Oh, no, that's fine. That's fine. We're used to a lot of people live, like me, live out in the middle of nowhere, and we're a little dependent upon good broadband. So, okay.
yeah.
Okay, so M, are you thinking about getting one of those machines, or have you done any kind of needle felting before?
So Danette and I own Carolina Sunshine Alpaca Farm, and we are blessed to have Lena Peck Bostwick on our staff, and many of you know her. So she's our fiber artist. So I must say that I have done very little myself, but we do wet felting on Wakaya for dryer balls and cat toys. And we do the needle felting on the dryer balls after, but we don't do felting with Suri. And we're interested in getting a machine that we can use for the Suri to make probably felted sheets of felt versus a dryer ball. And then maybe with the sheets of felt, maybe we would make something 3D. So yes, we're very interested in a machine that what's in our head might be what you're talking about is in Kentucky, which would have
Yeah.
a row of needles that we would feed the Suri.
Yeah. Yeah, and as I said, I I hadn't, and this was I feel like this whole series has been kind of a little educational for me, as many years as I have owned Suris and kind of put myself around fiber artists. I do feel like there's maybe over the last, say, 5 to 7 years or so, I feel like there's probably a lot more people that are mixing in the Suri with the Wakaya. Back when I started, the thought was always that you put Suri with wool. So, and I have not had anybody make me sheets of felt for quite some time. So kind of, I'll say back in the day, people would ask me to blend it with something when they put it through that machine, the Kentucky, I'll call it the Kentucky machine. I know it has another name, but so they would usually ask me to include some sort of wool in there. But again, it was usually a small amount, maybe like 15% or so. I don't know. It probably works if you were to blend in some regular alpaca.
I'll share one other thing that we saw at Nationals a couple weeks ago, and I don't know who it was. I should credit the person. If I knew the person, I would. But Lena pointed out somebody there has a needle felting machine, and they were running their like chair pads and trivets and things like that. They would make those through normal means and then run it through the needle felting to reduce the what do you call it when after a while you're using chair pad and little hairs come out. And so you could maybe run a small rug or a chair pad or a trivet through the needle felting machine to kind of give it a finish. And they had done that. They were near us.
Okay. And so had they done some other sort of felting to it ahead of time, you mean? And then they just put it through the machine for kind of that final finishing, or?
I don't think so. I think it was more of a weaving or braiding. You can tell I'm an IT project manager, not a fiber artist. So I feel a little out of my depth here. But
That's
it
fine.
was more of a weaving or braiding process to create the item, and then run it through the needle felting machine just to felt it just enough so that it doesn't get hairy, for lack of a better word. Like if the chair pads we make, they're great, but after with the abrasion over time, they will start to pull apart, shed. I don't
Yeah.
know how to call it, hairy. And I
Halo.
had
Yeah.
a customer buy a rug, and she didn't like how it did that, and so she ended up putting this beautiful alpaca rug inside a cover. It's just like so I'd love to have a
That kind of defeats the purpose.
exactly, I know, right? To have a finishing on it. So we were really intrigued with what this party had done. And again, I don't know who it was offhand. So.
Okay.
But an idea for y'all.
Okay. And I don't, just speaking about the machines, I don't know if anybody here has even, I'm sure you would have spoken up if you had one, but I'm wondering if anybody has seen anything come out of that. It's a more of a wet felting machine, I think, that Wade Geese offers. That's kind of a big, pretty kind of it's not desktop because it's wet, and so you have to have it somewhere where you can have water coming and going. But I don't know if anybody's seen anything come out of that machine, or I just learned about it not too long ago, and I was kind of curious.
Is he still making those?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I
if
mean,
he-
I just read about it, but stuff, you find stuff on the internet and it can be really old.
Yeah.
I know some people use hand sanders, the little like mouse sanders without sandpaper on it to do wet felting in larger quantities. I've tried doing it. The vibration in my hand just kills me, so I can't do it. But yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And Char, I was going to ask you, when you are doing your needle felting, like, are you doing 100% Suri, or are you mixing in any Wakaya in there, or?
I haven't mixed the two yet.
Okay.
I'm waiting for some things to come back from the mill.
Okay.
My stash
Okay.
got low. So
Okay.
in fact, I just dropped off like 25 pounds of
There you
stuff
go.
to get back. It's because I moved 3 years ago, and I said I haven't got around to it. I'm just going to treat myself and go ahead and get her out of my clean out my stash of fleeces. So that I've kind of had an interruption in the flow of things, but I just prefer to work with 100%. I do like to blend both fibers together. I just don't have easy access now to Suri fiber
Okay. Okay.
since I've moved here.
Sure.
I have to drive down to Nancy's, get some.
Anytime, Shar.
Okay.
Brett's had his hand up for a little while.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that I found that multi-needle device on Amazon.
Okay.
This is actually a 7-needle version,
Yeah,
Yeah.
choose.
so it's $8. And there's another one. Now they got several different ones. There's one you can buy a pair. One has 7 needles, the other has like 3. So they
Thank
are on
you.
Amazon.
Thank you,
All
sir.
right. Well,
Um,
Brett, hopefully you can give it a try again and not injure yourself.
Yeah, I might actually. I think that it may be a handy thing, that tool to have around.
Yeah.
It's a lot faster than one needle.
Yeah. Well, and safer, and like you do, you repair your dryer balls. Sometimes I have to do that too. So
Yeah.
Yeah, they're good on dryer balls. That's what we use.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. I don't know if does anybody have any other comments? I think I feel like I've kind of covered everything. I wish that Go ahead. Yeah.
We did a gnome felting class on a farm nearby that I helped lead, and we ordered a beginner's kit from Hobby Lobby, and it's like $15. So if some of y'all want to, take a step in that direction, it's a, cheap and easy way to try it out if you want to do some needle felting.
Okay, all right. And
I'll just-
Sandy asked I'm just gonna say Sandy asked a good question that I was kind of thinking about too. She going back to the needle felting machine that the Char has. She was saying that so would that machine help with the hangings like Carol was showing us that she does, the wall hangings? And I kind of wondered that too, because Carol was mentioning that she had stuff that had kind of come loose a little bit, or maybe just never bonded a whole lot with during the wet felting.
It's really perfect for that kind of stuff.
I think so.
For hangings, for fixing things, it's great for that. Right,
Okay.
Char?
I haven't tried it, but I'd give it a shot.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's really good for that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think even if I used one of those multi-needle tools and put the wall hangings like on the foam and just even like did that, that would possibly help too.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Wait, guys. Wendy says we have recently purchased a used Wade Geese felter, but we've only played with Wakaya so far. We were hoping to pick up info here. Uh-oh, Wendy, you may be the leader. So does this mean everyone is wet felting by hand? I know the Wakaya only takes about 5 or so minutes. Actually, that raises a question on the wet felting. So when you guys say double, when some of you who have wet felted with Suri, hand wet felted, when you say double, like she's saying 5 minutes for Wakaya, is it roughly 10 minutes or so, or is it 15 or 20? Like, what are we talking?
It's definitely not 5. Depending on what you're making, yeah, I'd say like a half hour to an hour. I usually spend on like a hat or something.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Well, I take longer.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So even longer.
Yeah, it's like half the day.
I do too. Yes. Yes. It's a couple hours to make a hat.
Okay.
It kind of depends on how mad I am at my husband. I'm joking. But it really is good anger release.
Okay, well that maybe that's the difference for some of the folks who have been are used to Wakaya that are trying to work with Suri. Maybe even just doubling it was like, okay, I'm still not making progress. Now you have to go for an hour.
At least. And that's without the shaping. That's just getting it to felt.
Yeah. It really, if you by the time you get shape and you're doing the drying and any touch up, it usually takes me like into the next day, because I can do it in the afternoon and let it dry overnight, and then it's a little loose here, or we got a little bit of a hole here, and I'll touch it up with a needle felting.
Okay. So I guess then going back to Wendy's question, and it sounds like none of us know, but in terms of how much time it takes through Wade's machine, I don't know. It sounds like maybe it takes longer. There might be some, Wendy, there might be some YouTube videos out there, possibly, with people who have used Suri and his felter. Let's see, we've got more messages. Let's see. So, so Brett, you said there's a machine out there called the Gentle Roller that is supposed to be a good, sorry, my thing is
Wet
in
filter.
my wet filter. Thank you. Sorry, I have something in the way of the
Not filter.
what. I bet it, I believe it comes from Australia. I don't know if anybody's heard of it.
Yeah, this came up a while back when I was trying to help somebody sell an old easy roller, which is like, it's like over 12 years old. They're out of business now. But the lady that told me, or was helping me, told me about the gentle roller, which is like the latest and greatest technology. So I have no personal experience with it, but
And is it a wet felting process or
yes.
a?
Yeah, it's a wet
Okay.
filter.
Okay, all right. Good, and then let's see, Nancy Lindemood said the Woolery also has felting supplies. They have an 8-needle tool, finger guards, Brett, foam pads, etc. They are also a sponsor. Oh, yes, they are a sponsor of the Surrey Network Fiber Arts Competition. That is true. So if any of you, I should give a plug. What the heck, for the Surrey Network Fiber Arts Competition. But if any of you are inspired after this to do some sort of felting, needle felting or wet felting or Nuno felting with Surrey, feel free to enter our competition. It's in July, Nancy?
Correct. And I will also put in an additional plug, since you mentioned it, that we do give Woolery gift certificates to the top winners of Fiber Arts and spin-off. So the other thing that's great about the Woolery is they have actual people there that you can talk to if you have questions about their products or what you need for a certain type of fiber art. You can actually chat with a real human. So that I like that about them.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, Char.
I just want to say a big thank you to the Surrey Network. My daughter won the judge's choice with her entry last year in the Fiber Arts contest.
Yes.
Yes, she did. I dyed some of that Surrey yarn that I'd gotten from this farm that went out of business in North Carolina, and she absolutely loved having that gift certificate and went shopping and bought herself some really nice things. So she said,
Awesome.
let
That's
y'all know
very
how
nice.
much she enjoyed participating and appreciated the gift certificate.
Awesome. Thank you for that feedback. Okay. All right. Does anybody else have anything more? We're an hour and 10 minutes in. So does anybody else have anything?
That just
regards-
reminded me, I actually won Judge's Choice at the last one that was held in Colorado when we had the symposium, but wait, hang on.
Uh-oh, I'm going to share.
Oh, I think I remember Karen's entry. Was
I
it
remember
felted?
it too. Yeah.
Yes.
Pillow, which is
I
all
loved
woven
it.
Surrey, and then
Oh, you got to hold it up higher. There you
there.
go.
All this is felted onto it, and that
Okay.
one Judge's Choice.
Now was that wet felted or I'm sorry, needle felted?
Well, some of it's wet felted and some of it's embroidered, and yeah,
Okay.
there's a lot of different techniques on this, but yeah,
Yeah.
that was
Okay.
before Woolery was sponsoring, though. I just got a ribbon.
I've got a picture of the shawl that Rachel made. It was her wedding shawl. I don't know if y'all can see that, but
Oh, wow.
That's beautiful.
Surrey.
Yeah.
And she
Very
wanted it.
nice.
She wanted it in shades of forget-me-not blue, and you know those flowers fade and have different colors. So I actually had to get some help on the dyeing, and had to call somebody and say, "Can you help me?" And they did a great job with that. And
That's awesome. Okay.
Hey, Liz,
Well-
Sandy had a question that I'd be curious to answer for those of you who are more experienced at this. Would be, if you're starting, would it be easier to start with wet felting or needle felting?
That's a good question. Yeah.
It depends what you like.
Yeah.
I've tried both. I don't for needle felting myself. It's too, I find it just too tedious, all that little, especially if you're making something three-dimensional. If you're doing flat felting, that's a whole lot easier. But if you're making a three-dimensional object and it's small, you have to work a long time with those needles to get the definition. Like I've done a little pumpkin. So to make it really look like a pumpkin, there's a lot of poking going on till it gets there. So I think it's a personal choice.
Also, if you're doing flat work, wet felting tends to blend everything together. You're going to get fuzzy lines. You're not going to get the sharp definition. If you're making, like, I have seen gorgeous needle felted landscape pictures and stuff, but those have to be needle felted to keep that strong definition in there.
I think wet felting though, you get instant gratification faster.
Yeah. But there are
Okay.
tons and tons and tons of YouTube videos on all of these techniques. And there are some fabulous artists out of Russia doing felting that the stuff they make is just amazing. So, yeah.
Okay.
Has anybody done the where you wet felt over a ball with a nylon hose over it? Okay, that's real fun. I actually paid for the video and had a friend, and we made large purses wet felting, and alpaca and a few other fibers and some different blends, the things in there for ornaments. And I would just say, if you want to do something like this, find a friend and just have a fiber day.
There you go. Okay, let's see. All right, looks like Sandy has got some good answers from you guys in her chat. She gave the A-OK sign. Okay, good. Does anybody else, anybody have anything else? No? Okay. Well, good. Well, thank you everybody for dialing in. And we put all of these out. And if you want to listen again, we put all of these out on YouTube, and then we put a link on our website, the surinetwork.org website. So I appreciate everybody dialing in. I think this has been a good conversation. And we'll see. We may pick these back up in the fall.
Okay.
Everyone.
All right. Thank
Good night.
you.
Thank you.